What if I told you that some states are seriously considering the possibility of leaving the United States? Crazy, right? But with political tensions, economic pressures, and growing independence movements, the idea of secession is back in the conversation. Could your state be next? Stay with us as we uncover the 10 states that could actually leave the USA. Let's dive in. First up, Alaska. Now I know what you're thinking. Alaska, isn't that where Sarah Palin sees Russia from her house? But hold your moose jokes for a second, folks, because this state's got a bone to pick with the Union. Did you know that before joining the US in 1959, Alaska had strong independence movements? That's right, they weren't just chilling in the snow, waiting for a pipeline to be built. Even today, groups like the Alaskan Independence Party believe the state could thrive as a sovereign nation. They've got oil reserves that would make a Texan blush and a strategic location between Russia and Canada. But could Alaska really go solo? They'd have to build their own healthcare system, education system, and more. Plus, think of the winter sports implications. Would they still compete in the Winter Olympics? These are the questions that keep geopolitical analysts up at night, people. Or maybe it's just the endless daylight. Either way, Alaska's got some serious thinking to do. Texas, the Lone Star State, the land of barbecue, cowboy hats, and enough oil to fuel 1,000 monster truck rallies. Texas was once an independent republic before joining the U.S. in 1845, and some Texans still haven't gotten over it. They're waving "Don't mess with Texas" flags and talking about secession. The Texas nationalist movement has been pushing for a referendum on independence for years, and they've got some pretty compelling arguments. They say, Texas has the economy, the resources, and the infrastructure to survive on its own. Texas has the 10th largest economy in the world if it were a country. That's bigger than Canada. And let's not forget about their oil and gas reserves, which would make them a global energy powerhouse. But would Texas really want to go it alone? Would they be willing to give up their coveted Whataburger locations in other states? And what about the Alamo? So many questions, so much at stake. Hold on to your surfboards, folks, because we're heading to the Golden State, where the avocados are plentiful, the tech industry is booming, and the dream of secession is, well, it's complicated. California has been flirting with the idea of Texit for years now. They pay more in federal taxes than they get back. Their housing market makes monopoly look affordable, and their traffic is so bad it makes rush hour in Los Angeles feel like a leisurely Sunday drive. But could California actually survive as its own country? They've got the world's 5th largest economy, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and enough agricultural production to feed a small continent. But let's not forget, they've also got a lot of people, a lot of problems, and a whole lot of reliance on federal funding. Chapter 4, Hawaii Aloha means goodbye. Aloha, everyone. We're heading to paradise where the beaches are pristine, the waves are epic, and the history is, well, let's just say it's complicated. Before Hawaii was the land of luau's and lace, it was an independent kingdom, minding its own business in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. That is, until the United States decided it wanted a piece of that tropical paradise. In 1898, the U.S. annexed Hawaii, and let's just say it wasn't exactly a consensual relationship. Now, over a century later, some native Hawaiian groups are saying, enough is enough, we want our sovereignty back. But could Hawaii actually survive as an independent nation in the 21st century? They've got tourism, agriculture, and that whole island paradise thing going for them. Plus, they're strategically located in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, which would make them a pretty valuable ally, or enemy depending on how things go, in the global geopolitical landscape. So could Hawaii actually say aloha to the U.S. and hello to independence? Only time, and maybe a referendum or two, will tell. Chapter 5, New Hampshire. Live free and secede. Next up, we're heading to the Granite State, where the motto is live free or die, the maple syrup flows freely, and the libertarian ideals run deeper than a Bernie Sanders rant about billionaires. New Hampshire, the land of rugged individualism, tax-averse citizens, and more guns than people, probably, has always had a bit of a rebellious streak. In recent years, that rebellious spirit has manifested itself in the Free State Project, a movement dedicated to creating a libertarian utopia within the state. Could New Hampshire, with its fierce independence, its libertarian leanings, and its stockpile of maple syrup, you never know when you'll need to barter for your freedom, actually secede from the Union? Chapter 6. Florida Sunshine State, separate state? Hold on to your Mickey Mouse ears, folks, because we're heading to the Sunshine State where the beaches are endless, the alligators are plentiful, and the governor's political ambitions are, well, let's just say they're ambitious. Florida, the land of retirees, theme parks, and enough weird news stories to keep the internet entertained for a lifetime, has always been a bit of an outlier. It's a state where you can swim with manatees in the morning, get chased by an alligator in the afternoon, and then end your day watching a rocket launch into space. So it's no surprise that some Floridians have started to wonder, are we better off on our own? Florida has the fourth largest economy in the U.S. thanks in part to its booming tourism industry, its agricultural production, and its status as a gateway for international trade. But could they handle their own elections? I mean, hanging Chads would be the least of their worries. So, could Florida actually secede from the Union? It's unlikely, but hey, stranger things have happened in the Sunshine State. Chapter 7. Vermont. Second time's the charm? Get ready to grab your flannel shirts and craft beers, folks, because we're heading to Vermont, the land of maple syrup, Bernie Sanders, and a surprising amount of secessionist sentiment. Vermont has a long and storied history of doing its own thing. They were an independent republic for 14 years before joining the Union, which is longer than some celebrity marriages. And let me tell you, that independent streak never really went away. In recent years, the Second Vermont Republic movement has been gaining traction, arguing that the state would be better off governing itself. They point to Vermont's progressive values, its strong sense of community, and its history of self-sufficiency as evidence that it could thrive as an independent nation. Vermont is known for its commitment to environmental protection, its robust social safety net, and its thriving local food movement. But could Vermont really go it alone in the 21st century? Would they build a wall out of maple syrup to keep out the riffraff? Would Bernie Sanders be their benevolent dictator? Hold on to your grits, folks, because we're heading to South Carolina, the Palmetto State, where the history is as rich as the sweet tea, the accents are as thick as the humidity, and the threat of secession is, well, let's just say it's not exactly a new concept. South Carolina has a bit of a reputation. They were the first state to secede from the Union back in 1860, kicking off a whole Civil War thing that, spoiler alert, didn't exactly go their way. But hey, everyone makes mistakes, right? The point is, South Carolina has a history of doing things its own way, even if it means occasionally, starting a war with the rest of the country. Now, I'm not saying they're itching for another round of brother against brother, at least I hope not. But there are definitely some rumblings of discontent down in the Palmetto State. Some folks, particularly those on the far right of the political spectrum, feel like their values are no longer represented by the federal government. They see Washington as an overreaching, out-of-touch behemoth, hell-bent on destroying their way of life. Next up, we're heading to the Pacific Northwest, to the land of craft breweries, indie bands, and enough rain to make Seattle jealous. That's right, folks, it's Oregon, the Beaver State, where the forests are lush, the coffee is strong, and the political divide is, well, let's just say it's a little more intense than a friendly game of cornhole. Oregon is a state of two halves. On the one hand, you've got the liberal bastion of Portland, a city so hip it hurts, where everyone rides a fixed-gear bicycle, brews their own kombucha, and unironically wears socks with sandals. On the other hand, you've got the vast, rural expanses of eastern Oregon, where life moves at a slower pace, pickup trucks outnumber Priuses 10-1, and folks are more likely to be caught wearing camouflage than skinny jeans. This cultural and political divide has led some to propose a radical solution, splitting the state in two. The Greater Idaho movement seeks to redraw the state lines, merging eastern Oregon with its more ideologically aligned neighbor to the east. Oregon is a microcosm of the political polarization that's gripping America today. It's a state divided, and it's anyone's guess whether it can hold itself together. And last but not least, we're heading to the Evergreen State, the land of grunge music, coffee giants, and enough tech companies to make Silicon Valley nervous. That's right, folks, it's Washington, where the mountains are majestic, the rain is relentless, and the secessionist whispers are, well, they're getting louder. Washington, much like its southern neighbor Oregon, is a state of contrasts. On the one hand, you've got the booming metropolis of Seattle, home to Amazon, Microsoft, Starbucks, and enough wealth to make even the most jaded Wall Street banker blush. On the other hand, you've got the vast rural stretches of eastern Washington, where life moves at a slower pace, agriculture reigns supreme, and folks are more likely to be found driving a tractor than a Tesla. Some Washingtonians, particularly those in the more liberal western part of the state, feel like they're being held back by their more conservative eastern counterparts. They point to issues like gun control, environmental regulations, and social justice, arguing that the state would be better able to pursue progressive policies if it wasn't shackled to the rest of the country. Washington has a long history of progressive activism, from its early adoption of women's suffrage to its pioneering work on LGBTQ+ rights. So, what do you think? Could any of these states realistically leave the U.S.? Let me know in the comments. It's a question that's been debated by historians, legal scholars, and armchair political pundits for centuries. And the answer, as with most things in life, is, it's complicated. Secession is a messy business, fraught with legal hurdles, logistical nightmares, and the very real possibility of sparking a civil war, and let's be honest, nobody wants to see a repeat of that. But, hey, this is America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, and the birthplace of the McRib. So, while I'm not saying you should go out and buy a Don't Tread on Me flag just yet, it's always good to be prepared. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more eye-opening content. Until next time, stay curious.